Monsters! We love them, you love them, and we all know that there's no better way to look back through cultural history than to take a curious peek at what they've got lurking in their folklore garden shed and find out exactly which creatures and creations of legends our ancestors feared. Now, I know that we've already been across the globe in several parts of our Mythological Creatures series, but we feel that this mystical and magical realm has so much lore going on that it deserves an entire list to itself. And trust me, there's quite a few terrifying monsters lurking over in that strange, bizarre continent known only as Europe. Hello horror fans, what's going on? And once again, welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, top 5 scary videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch, as today we curiously take a look at the top 5 scariest monsters from European folklore. Roll the clip.
Although it was you that brought me here, you and a few others like you, into this land with no time for magic, no place for fairies and such folk.
For the curious amongst you, that clip was of course from season 1 of American Gods, as our boy Mad Sweeney got all emotional for the last time. And if you haven't yet seen or read American Gods, please do, because if you love European folklore or any other folklore from across the planet, then you'll find them all there, tucked up neatly in Neil Gaiman's legendary works. On with the show, I guess. Kicking off at number 5, the Gang Ganga. And our first entry heads us off to Norway, Sweden and Denmark, as this particular undead revenant has been morphed and shaped into a few different depictions throughout the history of Scandinavia. Now, although the Drauga of Scandinavian legend is perhaps their most prolific of folklore abominations, and this particular entry functions in a similar way, the Gang Ganga likes to do things a little differently. Derived from the prefix gen, which roughly translates to forward or towards, and then Ganga, which is derived from a word meaning foot or walk. The Gang Ganga roughly translates to walking after death. And I needn't say no more to give you guys an idea about where this one's going, right? As the legend goes, the Gang Ganga were the corpses of the dead that had reason to return to the mortal plane. Usually people that had been murdered or people that had committed suicide would return to their town and village after clawing their way from their own graves. Throughout the Viking age, the Gang Ganga were seen throughout several sagas such as the Grettis and the saga of Eric the Red. Here, much like the Drauga, they were often slayed and easily defeated by their heroes. But in a more contemporary setting, as Scandinavia became Christianized, the Gang Ganga became a sort of undead, violent zombie vampire that would break into the homes of their unsuspecting victims to spread disease. Whilst they were sleeping, they would attack people with their Dodin Keniep, which translates to the dead man's pinch, and when they awoke, their victim's skin would be sunken and blue, infected by the plague of the Gang Ganga. That's not very nice. Swinging in at number 4, the LICO. And for this one, we're heading over to the most intriguing, captivating and equally terrifying kingdom of Slavic mythology and folklore, which, other than Celtic, comes in as one of my personal favourite European folktales. Because we've all got a list of that, right? Now, Slavic lore is mainly focused on the balance of good and bad luck, and the LICO is perhaps the personification of the latter as the cultural embodiment of all evil and misfortune. Otherwise known as the Licho or Liho in several other Eastern European countries, the LICO is often described as an elderly woman dressed entirely in black, with one distinctive, terrifying eye peering out of her darkened veil. In other versions, the LICO also appear as a male goblin-like creature that is often found perching on tree branches or farmers' fences, peering silently at its victim. That's a pretty creepy image, right? In ancient times, the LICO was often thought to be a servant of death itself, and any quiet appearance that it made would mark the end of their days for whoever first glimpsed it, and in many cases, even entire villages. During pre-Christian times, Slavic villages would conduct a ritual to ward off the LICO during times of plague and famine, where they'd carve a feminine-like idol with one eye and then burn it on a pyre in an effort to combat the malevolence of the native LICO. In one particular tale, a local blacksmith was beset upon by a LICO, but just as she was about to eat him, he bargained with her that he was a legendary crafter and could forge for her anything that she liked. She chose an eye so she could finally have two to see with, and the blacksmith agreed. He told her that he'd have to bind her down whilst he hammered in the new eye so that she didn't make any sudden movements, and when the LICO was securely tied to the chair, the blacksmith shoved a red hot poker through the LICO's one good eye. That's one way to do it, right? Next up at number 3, Filiath. And whilst this particular entry may perhaps be a little familiar to you, it nonetheless still holds its own as one of the most intriguing cases of ancient folklore colliding with the modern era. In Scottish folklore, the Fir Liath, otherwise known in Scots as Am Fir Liath Mór, or otherwise known as the Big Grey Man of Ben Macdui, this creature is said to haunt the summit and mountain passes of Ben Macdui, the highest peak in the Cairngorms and the second highest peak in the whole of the British Isles. Obviously, down to his incredibly remote residence, few encounters with the Grey Man have occurred in folklore, but those who witnessed him described it as an impossibly tall figure, covered head to toe in short hair, surrounded by a strange, uneasy fog. As word of the Grey Man passed throughout the Highlands, remarks about hearing a strange, otherworldly howl began to find their way into folklore, and it is often thought that the Grey Man was a part of a grouping of grey people. In fact, as you may have managed to piece together, culturally, the Grey Man of Ben Macdui has been the strongest correlation to the Native American folklore of the Sasquatch, all the way at the top of a mountain in Scotland. Who knew? The thing is though, although the ancient lore of the Highlands told tales about the strange giant folk that lived at the top of the peaks of the Cairngorms, this particular folktale still regularly emerges in recent times. In fact, dozens of contemporary figures have cited the Grey Man, with notable encounters beginning in 1891 and the most recent being back in 1958. You see, many climbers across the Cairngorms regularly warn of running into the Grey Man to this day, and the legend of the Fir Liath seemingly still lives on. Next up at number 2, Koschei the Immortal. And this guy is equal parts horrifying and equal parts comically awesome. And in fact, Koschei the Immortal, also known as Koschei the Deathless, is one of the most prolific figures in Russian and Slavic folklore, often filling the role of the big bad archetypal male antagonist to many of their mythologies and cautionary tales. Koschei the Immortal serves as the masculine counterpart to the terrifying Baba Yaga, the woods witch that roams the wild in her hut built upon the legs of a giant chicken. Isn't folklore awesome? Although Koschei is a malevolent, formless entity, he often appears as a gaunt, bony, grizzled old wizard with a long grey beard clutching a sharp, serpentine dagger. In many folk tales, Koschei was depicted as riding naked throughout the wild on the back of a giant white stallion, searching for young women to kidnap and take back to his evil citadel in the dark parts of the wilderness. The thing is though, although his origins are relatively unknown, the most common proponent of Koschei's lore is the spell that he cast upon himself to make himself immortal. As the legend goes, Koschei the Immortal has buried his soul inside a series of nested objects that he has hidden far away on a remote island. On the island stands a tall oak tree, and at the bottom of the oak tree is a large oak chest. Buried inside the chest is a large hare, and within the hare is the corpse of a duck, and within the duck is an egg, and hidden within the egg is a tiny needle that contains Koschei's soul. Throughout Slavic legend, no one even came close to figuring out where his soul was hidden, and because of that he was free to continue his malevolent reign for all eternity. Also, a little side note, but in one of the greatest video games ever created, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, an evil frost mage named Koschei is the main villain, so there you go, another reason to play The Witcher. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, the Curie. And this one is incredibly interesting because this particular folk legend comes from a very interesting part of England, Devon, an ancient place steeped in its own unique folklore and mystery, and perhaps its most horrifying folklore monster is the Curie. As the legend goes, out on the vast and bleak moors of Dartmoor, many people throughout the ages were lured away by the mythical will o' the wisps, bright lights that transfix travellers and turn them to stray off the path where they would ultimately meet their deaths. By those ancient graves, a strange dark demonic creature known as a Curie would manifest, where it would wait for passers-by and then latch on to their necks. Once the Curie had you over the course of several weeks, it would slowly convince you that it was real by whispering violent and evil thoughts into your ear. Sometimes you would dream of its existence, and as you dreamt, you'd feel a cold touch on the back of your neck. Gradually over time, its presence would start to become more and more apparent, and at night it would grab your leg, it would attack you in your dreams, it would change the face of your family members when you were talking to them into a dark, twisted vision of itself. The Curie is a creation of pure evil, and it would never make itself known to anyone else, forcing you to question your own sanity. And that's when the Curie had you. As you pled to be let go, it would start bargaining with you, and it will promise you that if you return to the graves on the moors, you'll be free from its evil grasp and the torment will be over. Well, of course, once you did that, the Curie would tell you that the grave is just a few steps further but eventually, of course, you'd never reach your destination, and eventually your body would succumb to exhaustion out on the moors as the Curie kept you alive long enough to watch your body deteriorate in the elements, where a new grave would form for the next victim. Yeah, if you're ever in Devon, guys, steer clear of the moors at night. It's a nice place though. Well, there we have it, guys, our list for the top 5 scariest monsters from European folklore. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you have any more to add? Well, let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as well as your own choice picks of your own. Choice picks. Before we depart from today's video though, let's first take a quick look at some of your more resounding remarks from over the past few days. Amy True says, "Dude, I love your videos, but please, please, please will you stop pronouncing the L in folk? It's a silent L." Hey Amy, and first off, thank you very much. But hey, that's just the way the accents work. I'm from the Midlands. L vocalization is a thing. Not all yokes and folks are silent, even if you do think I sound like an idiot. That's the beauty of dialect, right? I hope so. Anyway, well, on that note, horror fans, that's unfortunately all we've got time for in today's video. Just stick around all the way until the end. If you were a fan of this video or just top 5 scary videos in general, then please be a dear and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell. And I'll be seeing you in the next one. As per usual, I've been your horror host, Jack Finch. You've been watching top 5 scary videos. And until next time, you take it easy.